I work at a haunted train station, but it's the three cursed rules that keep me awake at night. I never should have opened that door. The moment I did, dread washed over me like ice water. It was supposed to be a mundane night shift, just the usual hum of the tracks and the distant echo of forgotten trains. But that night it felt different. The station loomed around me. Dim lights flickered overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to dance on the walls. The air was thick with a stale chill, like ghosts whispering secrets. I ran my hands over the cold metal of the ticket booth. It felt lifeless, like it had seen too much. Every creak of the floorboards sent shivers down my spine. What was lurking behind those shadows? I went through my routine. I filled out the logbook. The scratching of my pen felt too loud in the silence. The clock ticked, slow and steady, dripping time like a leaky faucet. But then, a low groan echoed through the platform, a sound that shouldn't be there. I froze. My heart raced. Was that just the wind? No. It was something more, something alive, lurking just out of sight. The first rule was simple: never lock the doors at night. I had been told stories of passengers trying to escape dark entities, of shadows that slipped through locked doors as if they were air. I'd seen the fear in my coworkers' eyes. But I didn't believe until the shadows seemed to crawl closer, whispering in voices I couldn't understand. The second rule: always listen to the trains. If one stops without reason, don't approach. The first time it happened, a train had halted, grinding to a silent stop with no warning. The doors had swung open, but it was empty. Just silence. No one dared to step inside. I shuddered at the thought, remembering the eerie stillness that had settled around me, like the calm before a storm. Then there was the third rule: never call out for the lost souls. I chuckled nervously at the thought as I tracked the murmurings. They say it could draw them in, like moths to a flame. I didn't want to believe it. Yet every night, I felt the pull. A chilling realization laid heavy in my chest. Just then, I saw a flicker of movement in the periphery of my vision. I turned, breath caught in my throat. Nothing, only darkness. It felt like the walls were closing in, crushing me beneath the weight of the unknown. I stepped back, my body screaming for a way out. But the station held me captive. From somewhere behind me, I heard a faint laugh, light and mocking, like it knew my fears. Cold sweat dripped down my back. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my phone, the screen flickering to life, illuminating a glimmer. I breathed in, ready to call for help, but my voice lodged in my throat. Suddenly, a whistle pierced the air. A train, but no train was scheduled. I whipped around, the sound echoing like a harbinger of doom, and all I could think was that I wished I'd never opened that door. The whistle grew louder. My heart raced. I stood frozen, locked in place as the weight of dread pressed down on me. And then, from the depths of the station, a figure began to emerge. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The figure slithered through the gloom, indistinct and shrouded in shadow. As it stepped into the frail glow of the overhead lights, my breath caught in my throat. It was a woman, or what appeared to be one. Her face was obscured, a tangle of tangled hair hung low, as if she had just emerged from some unspeakable abyss. The fabric of her clothes clung to her skin, tattered and soaked, as if she had traversed a mire to arrive here. That I wanted to scream, but nothing came out. The whistle, still echoing hauntingly through the station, intensified the pulse of terror within me. Every instinct told me to run, to flee from the grotesque apparition, yet I stood paralyzed, the cold grip of fear holding me in place. "Help me," she muttered, her voice a broken whisper that fluttered and faded like a moth caught in a web. "I can't find them, they're lost." She lifted her head slightly, allowing a sliver of her face to catch the light. The eyes, dark, hollow, seemed to bore into my soul, stirring feelings of anguish I could not comprehend. It took everything in me to step back, my feet dragging like lead against the grimy floor. I recalled the rules, the tales of those who had called out to the lost souls, but the human instinct to empathize tugged violently at my heart. Who is lost? I managed, before the weight of my curiosity could tear me apart. Everyone who enters this place, she choked on her words like they were too heavy to bear. You have to choose. You can't save us, I'll save who? I cut her off, scrambling to regain control of the conversation as dread twisted my insides. What do you mean? But the woman merely shook her head, the grim reality dawning on her featureless portrait of despair, framed in madness. They're coming. Before I could grasp the meaning. Like a storm gathering in the distance, the shadows around her began to expand, swelling and curling as if alive. They flitted about the station, smoky tendrils reaching for her, as if reluctant to let her go. Run! She screamed, a long, anguished wail that shattered the air and pierced through my defenses, driving the primal instinct for survival to the forefront of my mind. Without thinking, I spun around, bolting for the exit. The echoing sound of the train whistle reached a fever pitch, reverberating against the walls as I dashed down the platform, the darkness closing in around me. My heart pounded a cacophony of dread as a cold breeze whipped through the station, chilling my spine. But just as my hand touched the handle of the door, it slammed shut before my eyes, an invisible force binding it in place. I stumbled back, gasping. The sound of laughter floated through the air again, taunting me cruelly. I peered back towards the woman. She stood still, her presence growing more distorted as the shadows consumed her. You must make a choice, she screamed, voice warping alongside her contours. Leave or stay. The train tracks trembled as a presence surged from the depths, the air heavy with a sinister weight. I felt the ground vibrate as phantom footsteps resounded, a parade of lost souls emerging from the ancient darkness, their eyes hollow and mouths agape, screaming silently for salvation. Rattled, I stumbled backward, caught between terror and bewilderment. I heard the train whistle shriek again, closer this time, echoing even in my mind. I spun around to look down the platform, and through the framing shadows, I saw Ida train, seamless and black, rolling silently into the station like a harbinger of doom. The doors of the train burst open, but they weren't meant for passengers. They creaked wide, revealing an inky void inside, beckoning like a maw into hell. I felt the pull, the insistent whispers promising safety, intimacy with those lost, but the dreadful laughter wrapped around my heart like chains. Realization slammed into me like a bolt of lightning. I could not escape this. The rules were not just there to be observed. They were echoes of a reality I was unwillingly tangled within. Leave or stay? The choice began to unravel within me, a sinister split. With no time to waste, I turned my gaze to the woman, now variably hovering between existence and oblivion, shadows gliding through her ethereal form. I had to choose before they did it for me. But then I saw Ida's dark silhouette emerging from behind her, its head cocked at an unnatural angle, a grin that stretched impossibly wide. It reached for her. No, I shouted, instinctively lunging forward to intervene. But as I did, the world around me fractured, and I was sucked into the train's gaping darkness, the laughter of the lost souls echoing into nothingness. Behind me, the last thing I heard was her voice, piercing through the chaos. You made your choice. The door slammed shut. The silence was oppressive, wrapping around me like a shroud. I had crossed an invisible threshold, and with it came an unsettling clarity. The laughter that had echoed through the train had dissipated into an eerie calm, replaced by an almost palpable tension. I could feel it swelling around me, thick and suffocating, as if the shadows themselves were closing in, watching, waiting to eye in the abyss of the train car. I tried to steady my breath, but found it coming in short, desperate gasps. The air grew colder, more biting, sending tremors racing up my spine. I pressed my back against the cold metallic wall behind me, seeking any comfort in the steel. I observed the dark around me, my senses heightened yet dulled in the oppressive gloom. As I stood there, doubt gnawed at my insides, whispering that my time was fading, that whatever choice I made had sealed my fate. My surroundings began to warp, the space twisting like the tortured faces that haunted me. In the shadows, they danced, flickering just out of sight, their whispers rising like the wind through the cracks of a grave. Each spoke of regrets unspoken, lives never lived. Their eternal benediction was a dirge that echoed in my soul. Suddenly, a sharp echo reverberated, a clang and a thud that shattered the stillness. It was distinct, as if something had moved in the belly of the train, shifting its weight against the metal floors. My heart raced again, this time fueled by dread coursing through my veins like ice. Was I truly alone, or had the figure from before followed me? "Come closer," a voice purred, dripping sweetness laced with malice. It echoed from the far end of the carriage, serpentine and seductive. The shadows coiled tighter around me, blurring the edges of my senses. The flickering overhead lights illuminated fragments of what lay a heated tunnel of impossibly darkened metal, and within it, the figure I instinctively took a step back, but the shadows seemed to hold me fast, anchoring me in place. "I can help you," it continued, its allure palpable. "Stay with me, and together, we shall find peace." "Peace?" I spat, my fear igniting into outrage. What kind of peace resides in this hell? The figure smiled a wretched grin that etched itself across its face, stretching ears to unholy lengths. "The kind that grants release from your torment. You didn't think you'd escape, did you? You're one of us now, bound by the curse of this cursed train." With horror, I remembered the 3 rules the station whispered, to the lost rules that seemed to pulse within the air, resonating with each heartbeat. Never look back, never wander too far, and never trust the shadows. Yet here I was, my breath caught in the vice of inevitability, the rules forgotten amid the sheer terror of my plight. That a low growl reverberated through the train, the cacophony of shifting metal and grinding gears. Outside the windows, formless shapes darted past, ethereal silhouettes cloaked in a dismal haze. They were beings resembling lost souls, clawing at the entryways, mouths stretching open in a scream that pierced the air, though no sound emerged. I was caught between despair and timeless horror, a plaything in an unrelenting nightmare. The figure took a step closer, light from the failing bulbs casting malevolent shadows, as it extended a skeletal hand toward me, fingers teasing the edges of my reality. "Join us, embrace the darkness. You can never leave. Don't resist. It will only make the pain worse." Just as I felt the weight of its gaze urging me to yield, I heard a chorus of anguished whispers rising above the guttural growls. "Help us! Save us!" Those voices, they called to me like ghosts tethered to an unending sorrow, imprisoned by their choices. For a fleeting moment, I glanced toward the shadows of those faces, their anguished expressions reflecting my own turmoil. But in the very depths of my soul, I knew these were not benign spirits. They were the collected remnants of those who had succumbed to the same fate that I swung around, snapping the connection, determination coursing through me. I would not let this darkness take me. I had to resist. I sprinted down the narrow corridor of the train car, the rumbling beneath my feet a throbbing warning. I had to escape this vessel spiraling deeper into the abyss. But as I moved, the shadows shifted to block my path. The darkness thickened like a living thing, reaching out with fingers of malice, grabbing at my heels. I could feel the malevolence behind meth laughter returning, mocking, cruel. "You don't understand, dear traveler. You can never escape us." With a jolt that felt like the breaking of my very essence, I collided into a wall of cold, unyielding darkness. There, looming large and menacing, was a portal, the mouth of something far greater and insatiable than I could ever comprehend. The shadows multiplied around me, swallowing any chance of retreat. I realized in horror that I was not just fighting for my own freedom. I was standing at the precipice of a choice far more harrowing than I could fathom. In that moment, the train screeched to a halt, an anguished roar that shook my bones. The air thickened with the scent of decay, and the voices crescendoed into a howling wind that rattled the metal and pierced every barrier of sanity I had left. Then, I saw a spectral figure of the woman from before, her eyes glowing with a haunting sadness, as she reached out a trembling hand toward me through the chaos. "You must choose," she whispered urgently, barely audible over the cacophony. But in that instant, the floor beneath me shattered, the shadows erupting in a frenzy as the train heaved and groaned, slowly tipping into the darkness below. As I grasped the choice before Meher's outstretched hand or the yawning abyss, terror seized my heart. And just as the precipice crumbled, dragging the last remnants of hope into the void, I knew I was no longer my own. I had entered the realm of the wretched. The shadows screamed. And then, there was nothing but the deafening silence of the void, as the train vanished into darkness with me still on board, suspended between fear and the unknown. As the shrill howl of the train's whistle shattered the stillness, the darkness thickened around me, swirling with a smothering essence that seeped into my very being. Shadows flickered and danced, their endless whispers churning into a relentless mantra. I felt their icy tendrils grasp at my memories, the irreversible choices that defined my soul. The sight of Clara flickering between the realms gnawed at my sanity. "I won't leave without you," I cried out, the desperation in my voice heightened by the consuming shadows. But their laughter encircled me, a cacophony of lost hopes and dreams, a symphony that assaulted my mind. Leave her, forsake her, or endure her fate. They jeered, the broken remnants of the station warped around me, the rusty beams stretching like skeletal fingers grasping for salvation. I stumbled back, the ground beneath me quaking as the shadows surged. Panic engulfed my thoughts, each heartbeat echoed my fears. If I chose to stay with Clara, would I suffer the same fate as those trapped in this malevolent station? From the depths of the unseen shadows, pulsing wounds of blackness began to seep through the cracks. Tendrils of darkness snaked toward me, their caresses as chilling as the grave. "You think you can resist? You are already ours," they hissed. "Clara," I screamed, but she appeared to dissolve further into the encroaching void. Her face contorted in anguish, begging me to let go. I couldn't fathom losing her, yet every second that passed felt like eternity, each pulsating beat of my heart tethering me to the abyss. Then, the whispers transformed, settling into an unnerving chant. "3 rules bind you here. Break them, and you will find your freedom along with your doom." The shadows shifted, shapes forming as if to grant me counsel, their faces a grotesque reflection of humanity, contorted by desire, loss, and a hunger that transcended time. Leave this wretched place. First, you must never look back at your past, the dark forms crooned, delight dancing in their eyes. Second, you must never trust those you love, for love is but a construct of anguish. Each rule tightened their grip, my essence dimming as their glee escalated. And lastly, but I couldn't let them finish. "No, I refuse," I warned. But the shadows were relentless, pushing forth with their dreadful truth, their intent suffocating. The train's iron doors hung wide as a malevolent maw, ready to consume more souls. Clara's specter stood at the threshold, her eyes radiating hope intertwined with fear. "It's not too late to turn away," she whispered, a flicker of her familiar warmth igniting within the chilling darkness. "Save yourself, Clara." The shadows writhed, transforming from mere figures into grotesque faces of all I had lost: longing parents, childhood friends, and heartbreaks that lingered beyond time. They reached for me, mouths agape in silent screams, as if pleading for liberation through my suffering. "Your sorrow fuels them," Clara howled, the anguished cry reverberating. "You must be stronger." Her luminous spirit flickered like a beacon in the swirling chaos, compelling me to choose. But the shadows came closer, their icy grasp a reminder that every moment I spent tethered to love weakened my resolve. They sang their malevolent song, drawing me into their embrace, every word a reminder of my regrets. "You can end your pain, earn your freedom, give in to the darkness." Staring into Clara's fading silhouette ignited a terrible clash within me. The energy of the train surged, vibrating with ferocity as the reality around us distorted. Could love save me, or would it be my ruin? In that crucial moment, the shadows lunged, striking as one, aiming to drag me into eternal torment. With a desperate breath, I clenched my fists and screamed against the tempest of despair, bracing for the impact. In the eye of the storm, I dashed toward Clara, my heart pounding with defiance as the chilling darkness lashed against me. "Stand with me," I bellowed, reaching for her phantom hands, which flickered like dying embers. Just as my fingers grazed her ethereal form, a blinding light shattered the shadows, pouring through the cracks like liquid dawn, illuminating everything in its path. And then the infernal laughter morphed into wails of anguish somewhere in the depths of their void. A great horror awakened, dark and primal. "You think you'll escape? This is merely the beginning." The shadows writhed in agony as the light burst forth, But I was pulled into that blinding brilliance, unraveling the devouring darkness that clung to me. With a chilling finality, I felt the threads of my bond with Clara stretching thin, her form dissipating amidst the chaos, viewed through a shroud of despair. No, my voice echoed through the trembling station, the fear settling heavily in my chest as the light enveloped me, awakening something deep within the bone-chilling realization that this might truly be my choice between freedom and an everlasting curse. And then silence fell, a breath held within the bones of the station. As the light dimmed, I found myself staring back at the figment of my past, the shadows retreating momentarily, revealing a twisted, grotesque mirror of my lost self. Choose wisely, they spoke in unison, the shadows now festering around me as their twisted forms began to regenerate. Beneath this light lies a truth far worse than darkness itself. As the ground quaked anew, I stared into the abyss reflected in the twisted glass of my memories, every regret resurfacing like the squirming despair of countless souls intertwined. With dread sinking into my bones, and the crushing knowledge settling over me, my heart raced, for I knew that this was no mere choice. It was a reckoning of fate, a chilling plunge into the depths of my soul. Before I could comprehend the unfolding horror, the train's horn let out a soul-piercing wail, a sign of the coming storm. But this time it was different. The pitch rose as if calling for something else within the depths. And that's when I saw an entity lurking beneath the flesh of the station. A horror, not of shadows or whispers, but a presence that thrummed with ancient chaosa darkness far more insidious than I could ever have prepared for. "Welcome to your reckoning, wanderer," it roared, and as its eyes pierced through the gloom, I realized with sheer terror. I had awakened something buried long ago, and now it sought to reclaim its dominion over my very soul. The chill in the air deepened, sinking its claws into my skin as I stood paralyzed, the weight of what I had unleashed crashing over me like icy surf. The creature looming before me was an amalgamation of nightmares, its form a shifting mass of distorted faces and anguished cries, each visage flickering in and out of reality, hollow echoes from lives consumed by despair. "Your defiance amuses me," the entity chortled, its voice a sinister symphony of those who had come before me. "A mere mortal thinks he can challenge the darkness. You are but a spark among this endless void." The ground beneath me quaked, each tremor resonating in the marrow of my bones, as if the very station demanded blood for its twisted sanctuary. I attempted to step back, but my feet felt as if they were rooted within the very essence of the horror, trapped in a dance that promised both liberation and doom. "Clara," I whispered, desperate for her presence, heart searing with regret at the thought of abandoning her to this fate. But there was no flicker of light. No spectral hand reached out through the shadows this time. "Where are you?" The silence whispered back, a deafening reminder of my solitude. The blood of my heart quickened. The creature's eyes, endless voids themselves, began to draw me in, a gravitational pull promising understanding at the brink of insanity. The shadows, once a mere extension of fear, began to twist and coil around my limbs, pulling tighter, as if they could taste my heart's trepidation. "You think your memories stand a chance here?" It crooned, the form shifting again, now taking the shape of a frighteningly familiar Visijami father, eyes sunken and twisted by grief, mouth attempting to form words lost long ago. "Forget them. Leave the past behind." "No, stop," I shouted, recoiling, but the creature laughed, a cruel melody dancing through the air as it unfurled a maw filled with teeth that glinted like shards of glass in the dim light. Its breath was the stench of decay, the rot of lost souls, and with every ragged inhalation, my strength ebbed closer to a breaking point. The shadows around me coalesced, writhing with a sentient malice intent on bending my will. "Remember the rules," they hissed, their voices overlapping, drowning my thoughts in their collective madness. "Trust no one. Honor your agony, for it will be your salvation." That I fought against their grip, focusing on the lingering warmth of Clara's memory, her laughter, the soft light of her smile, but even that threatened to fade, drowned by the tide of dread. "You loved her," the entity mocked, taking my doubt and twisting it. "Do you believe love will save you? Love is a prison, and you are a prisoner." The shadows claimed more of me, I felt the weight of Clara's absence, a stark reminder that her fate intertwined with my own. Was it truly possible? Could I abandon her for my own freedom? Choose. The words clawed at my sanity, echoing as if the station itself writhed in anticipation, begging me to submit to whatever dark inclination possessed it. The train horn howled again, piercing through the overwhelming labor of my introspection, but this time it sounded different, like a mournful lament, a call to arms. It echoed within the marrow of my bones, urging me to heed its warning. Beyond the station's eternal twilight, I remembered the final rule, deep and sorrowful. It pulsed through me, reminding me of its dreadful significance. If you abandon your memories, oblivion shall follow. But if you embrace them, the darkness will consume you whole. In that fleeting moment, a paradox anchored itself into the depths of my despair. Perhaps my only hope lay within the echoes of my love for Clara. If I clung to her memory, maybe I could pull her back from the void alongside myself. But was it worth the risk? Was I willing to face the wrath of the shadows? In this, the entity snarled, the faces swirling around it curling into expressions of pure malice. Yield to me, and I shall grant you bliss in the embrace of forgetfulness. In a whirlwind of despair, the decision tightened in my chest, an irreversible urge to step into the depths of darkness encroaching at the edges of my mind. I knew the consequences, but with a heartbeat echoing louder than the train's call, I embraced what I feared the most: pain, loss, and the phantoms who thrived on it. Suddenly, a sharp, blinding pain shot through my forearm, the shadows tightening, and I screamed. My skin rippled beneath the grip of invisible talons as something clawed its way out of the depths, a piece of me long considered lost. When the dark burst forth, a vision materialized in the chaos, a memory involuntarily dredged from the depths. Something I'd thought severed, wrought with grief. Clara's face, her eyes wide with terror, reflecting a moment before she vanished within the train's ominous embrace. And oh, I could barely muster a breath, watching in horror as the tension twisted and contorted reality around me. Memories flooding from my heart into the air, tangible threads of warmth slowly dissipating. Clara's anguished expression as she slipped away ignited the embers of anguish deep within my gut. In an instant, the shadows shrieked, recoiling as if scorched. The atmosphere shifted, announcing the oncoming storm, an electric ripple that heralded the eruption of turmoil. As I clung to the resurfaced memory of Clara, the walls of the station began to crack, the ancient stone rumbling as if awakening from a long slumber. When I had least expected it, the presence, once an abyss now, formed a terrifying entity, unveiling its true shape from the shadows, letting loose a thunderous roar unconcealed by light, commanding the attention of every dread and despair. And as all eternity trembled, the chilling realization burst forth. In my desperate attempt to cling to Clara's memory, I had not just awakened a horror, I had summoned something far worse. I will consume everything you cherish, it declared, dark voids glistening, with a hunger poised to ravage all. Your memories will be my feast. And in that moment of horror and realization, I understood the shattered ties to freedom would seal my fate. The train had arrived, rattling into the forefront of my darkest truths, setting the stage for a reckoning I did not anticipate. A chilling wind howled through the station, ripping the fabric of reality itself, threatening to swallow me whole as I prepared for the impending storm. Then, as the creature surged forward, I felt a sudden, harsh pull, dragging me towards the mouth of the void. The shrill wail of agony intermingling with shrieks of forgotten souls echoing around me as the shadows threatened to engulf me. Cold darkness spiraled like a coiling snake. One final choice remained, as the blood-chilling truth whispered through the chaos. I was to become either the conqueror or the conquered in this unholy den of despair. And as I was pulled into the churning abyss, one horrifying thought struck me. Was I ready to join those lost souls, or was it already too late to save Clara and myself? I careened through the darkness, clinging desperately to the fleeting warmth of Clara's memory, while the shadows enveloped me like a shroud, pressing heavily against my skin. I gasped for air, my heart pounding in time with the cacophony of despair echoing within this cursed station. The train, a monstrous embodiment of an entity I had unknowingly awakened, writhed with uncertainty, every whine of its gears resonating with an insatiable hunger. "Your memories will be my feast," it had declared, and the dread of that realization burrowed deep into my gut. I could feel it, an ancient malevolence clawing its way forward, ready to claim everything I held dear. Not just Clara, but all that I was, all I had ever loved. Each heartbeat felt like a countdown to my demise, a reminder of how desperately I had tried to escape this tormenting nightmare. Fingers of darkness lashed out, seizing my limbs with chilling precision. My pulse raced as I wrestled against their grip, embodying my defiance. I wouldn't succumb. I could still fight. Somewhere in the depths of my mind, echoes of the three rules reverberated ominously, the instructions that had become a lifeline but twisted into wicked shackles. Never look back, listen to the trains, never call for the lost souls. I thought of Clara and of what I had done, the name that had slipped from my lips, beckoning the shadows to reclaim me. I fought against the tide, pushing forward, determined to break the cycle. Each step felt like walking through the weight of despair. The darkness thickened with every ounce of despair I had collected over the years. And then I saw a flickering light ahead, an ember of hope amid the suffocating gloom. The ethereal glow grew brighter, illuminating a path that spiraled away from the churning shadows. I felt the weight of something deep within me, memory of a promise I had made to Clara, not to forget, not to abandon. In that moment, clarity embraced me. I would not willingly forget her along with everything I had lost. I had to confront the darkness head-on if I had any hope of bringing her back. "Clara," I shouted, piercing through the cacophony, and to my surprise, the shadows recoiled slightly, as though my voice had power against the grip of despair. Their laughter faltered, an eerie silence settling over the chaos. The train screeched, a mechanical beast enraged, but the light intensified, as if beckoning me to step through the veil of darkness. "Clara," I cried again, the name reverberating, empowered by my resolute choice. "Remember me. Fight back." As I surged toward the luminous glow, shadows swirled in a desperate fury, trying to claw back their prey, to pull me into their abyss of forgotten sorrow. But I kept my focus, Clara's radiant smile, kindling a fire deep within my chest, staving off the encroaching chill. I couldn't break my gaze. I could hear her voice, soft and distant beneath the thrumming chaos of the station. "Don't let it take you, don't let it take me," the surging darkness lashed out, grasping at the remnants of my resolve. But it was too late. A cascade of recollections surged through me like a torrent, every heartfelt laugh shared, every tender moment, every tear shed. They amalgamated into a force strong enough to resist the shadow's grasp. In that moment, I realized the grotesque truth: the entity feeding upon fear and despair was crafted from every dark choice I had made. Suddenly, stillness fell. The shadows hesitated, the train's haunt paused, coiling as though held back on a taut line. I stood firm, drenched in the brilliant glow that pulsed at my core. "I choose to remember," I boomed, the words echoing like thunder. "I choose to embrace my pain, my love, my light." A visceral scream erupted from the form of the entity, its visage distorting into furious convulsions as the light collided with the all-consuming shadow. "No, you think this power can save you?" it bellowed, but the light twisted, blocking its infectious grip, illuminating my path. Accelerating towards the overwhelming light, I felt every fragment of despair being stripped away, and with each piercing cry of the entity, I pushed through the barrier bounded by hope for Clara. And then I was enveloped in luminous warmth, a radiant embrace pulling me beyond the reach of shadows. Only for a moment, the world erupted in white brilliancy, a flood that consumed the haunting station, and I felt myself tumbling through time and space, the chorus of lost souls shrieking as they were swallowed into the abyss. But then, silence, and I fell onto something solid, the chill of night wrapping around me. I was outside. The polished platform of the station stretched wide, glimmering silver beneath the moonlight. I gasped, drawing in air that felt thick yet invigorating. I stood, confusion dawned in my chest. "Clara," I shouted into the stillness, terror and longing weaving into each syllable. My heart thumped loudly against my ribcage, resonating like a frantic drum. From the shadows at the end of the platform, a figure emerged, a silhouette, familiar yet haunting. I squinted, heart racing. Clara? The figure stepped closer, and as the darkness receded, I deciphered the features of a gentle smile beneath tangled strands of hair. Each heartbeat quickened with clarity. This was her, and yet a tremor of unease coursed through me. Clara. Relief washed over me, though something felt amiss. The shadows hung just beyond her, forlorn souls peering through the boundary of light, a bitter reminder of the entity I'd fought. You're here. But as she approached, the shadows flickered around her, and her smile faltered into a knowing frown. Not everything is as you left it, she whispered, her voice heavy with undertones of sadness. Once radiant, her form was muted, tinged with a shroud. You came back, but at what cost? I reached for her, desperate, but she stepped away. The warmth of connection slipped through my fingers like sand. You might have escaped the darkness, but the shadows linger. They will always linger, she uttered, eyes wide with understanding. No, I fought to bring you back. I cried, the weight of my choice crashing down. I had returned, yes, but the lingering specter of despair, the darkness that tainted the station, it clawed at the edges of our reunion. Clara closed her eyes, holding back tears. You cannot heal without losing something precious. You've chosen to remember, but every memory carries its burden. You cannot bear them alone. And then I saw a ripple of darkness emerging along the edge of the train station. They crept nearer, hungry shadows twisting their deranged faces, reaching toward us. Dread crashed over me. I had returned, but the evil I thought I had defeated still thrived, lurking just beneath the surface of hope. I realized with chilling clarity I was still tethered to that house of horror, called by the shadows even as I stood with Clara. Clara, I choked, turning toward her. We can escape together. But even as I spoke, I sensed the shadows pulling at my already fraying resolve, clawing at my emotions, beckoning me back with promises veiled in sweet lies. And beneath their advancing presence, Clara stood still, knowing what would come next. The darkness twisted, manifesting into the entity that had haunted my nightmares, its maw wide with eerie laughter. You can never leave. It groaned, flesh and despair intertwined. The last flicker of light from the entity, burning with despair, promised me that the darkness had returned this time. It would consume us both. I felt Clara's hand slip from mine, pulling away as darkness flowed toward her. I fought against them, feeling the pull of shadows ensnaring my essence, as I clung desperately to the fleeting presence of hope. Please, don't leave, I shouted into the blackness, but I could feel the shadows lapping at my very soul, splitting me apart from my last shred of light. But she turned away, vanishing into the folds of the encroaching darkness as the train's call blared through the night. With a gut-wrenching realization, I knew I had brought this upon us. The train still thrived on the lost, on the threads of despair I had once thought I could reclaim. The entity roared with triumph. And in that moment, as the shadows surged, I understood that evil never truly leaves. It only lingers in the memories we can't escape. I staggered back just as the void stretched wide, darkness curling anew around me, a suffocating reminder that salvation was an illusion. I wove through the creeping blackness, desperately grasping at fading fragments of Clara's light, only to find myself slipping further into despair. And as the train screeched into the depths of my despair, I understood the chilling truth. Perhaps the unwritten fourth rule was that sometimes the evil we do not choose comes back to tantalize us, forever entrapped in a cycle of loss, tethered to shadows, never wholly escaping. As I stood at the precipice of darkness, the last thought echoed through my mind, a haunting mantra to swallow me whole. You may leave the train, but the journey is never over.